actually stopped doing that a number of years ago. So the voucher piece we're not doing, but the residential piece we are. Yeah.
So did you get a contract for the rest for the voucher part?
Yes, all of it.
See, I didn't get one for the voucher part.
All of it.
Yeah. Wow. So you're not. So you got a contract with all, but you're not doing the rest.
We're not doing the voucher part. Yeah.
What's the house you got? What kind of restaurant?
It's for kids 17 and under, and it's a single family home, and we provide overnight respite services. Yeah, so up to 2 weeks a year, or more than that if there's an emergency.
They've got tons of parking.
So, Lori is here.
I think you're cheap.
I know.
Like whenever you go do that one class for safety.
Until you come and climb the stairs here, you're like, yeah, I don't think so.
December, it's past December. We just started working on this.
Perfect spot.
I know, it's like right in the middle of this light bulb, so I'm definitely going to move out of the way when I'm done.
Yes. We'll do quick introductions and
Yeah. Maybe I can ask Josh if we could turn off the light.
oh yeah.
You already got me a set.
Yes.
We got over 100
Oh, wait, I was like, it's amazing.
I got it.
Carl says you have a letter on your resume.
I have a contract on my respite with a 10% discount.
Why don't you ask the Attorney General for an advisory opinion?
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
that if we end up with no budget for
What does it
FY16, what does this have any legal basis?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
You better know now.
Oh, I know. You know, we were playing it very safe. We have 2 different respite programs. The larger respite program is a voucher program that we give money to families and we broker. The other is a residential respite program for kids. We're doing the residential piece, which is about $250,000 of the budget, and the voucher piece we have to do because we're not funding, $1.1 million for the stupid state. Unfortunately. But, it would be nice, if we started getting paid. Those families need the money. I mean, it's not like they need respite care. They need No, it doesn't cost anything. And, when you go into it, we just actually started talking about, since we're at that 6 months point, we're doing financials, and it's like, okay, we thought this was going to be like 4 months, maybe no more than 4 months, and yeah, here we are at the 6 month point already. So
I don't see the end.
oh, I don't either. Greg. I don't either.
Hi. Hi, good morning. Good.
It's nice to do nice
Here, you can have, there's another one. I don't need another one, so,
Really, the only thing.
yeah. What is it? Waiver blanket? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't even really, there's some updates on the tracker, but I can just, we don't have to really go through them.
Nope. So we'll just have everybody do some quick introductions and updates.
Yeah. Oh, good. Josh turned off the light.
Yeah. Don't turn it back on until I move.
You want to start? You want me to start?
All right, guys, we're going to get started. Everybody can take a seat, please, except for Carl. He likes to stand. Hi, Lori.
And George is here.
And George is here.
So we're just going to go for a little and then fire away.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got to call the meeting to order. Thanks, everybody, for hustling upstairs here for the committee meeting. Let's start with some introductions. As you can see, we have a couple of guests here with us today. We have George Bangle and Lori Baker.
Or two.
No one knows George Bangle, right? This is the face with the
My
name.
anonymity is gone. So.
We brought you out into the light.
So why don't we start and let Lori and George know who we are, and then if they could also, just say a few words about what role you're playing within the division. Because I know, Lori, you've maybe had a couple changes recently. So, all right. So I think everyone knows I'm Kim Zeller with Great Graham Association, and I co-chair this committee.
I'm Roxy. I'm the DD policy analyst at IARF.
Lori. I'm Lori Baker. I am the statewide housing and employment first coordinator for the Department of Human Services. I work out of the Secretary's office.
You want me to go?
Sure.
I'm George Bengal. I have been with the department or the Division of Developmental Disabilities for over 25 years now. Primarily, I've been heading up the SILA rates unit. My most recent assignment is I've also had the ICFDD unit assigned to me also. So I'm doing both.
Okay. Gus, can we start over here with you?
Gus Vandenbrink from Sertoma Center in Elsa.
Jerry Beagles, Garden Center Services.
Janice Negus, your Developmental Services Center.
Peggy Ross Jones, Hilton Mason Rehabilitation Center.
Barb Nelson, Community Link.
John Hilskamp, Community Link.
Michael Brave, Southern Illinois Living Center.
Cheryl Smith, Southern Illinois Living Centers.
Mary Kay Ambasino, CTF Illinois.
Mary Miller, the Hope Institute.
Deborah Braun, Door Community Services.
Ben Stores, Cornerstone Services.
Okay.
George Belt, Goldie Fulton Center.
Eric Taylor, Goldie Fulber Center.
John Dingle, Goldie Fulton. Greg O'Connor, Spark. Ryan Dowd, Spark.
Nancy Davis, Mosaic.
Kim Taylor, FACO.
Jean Nesbitt, DDS Metro East.
Mary Andrews, CAU.
Terry Garate, Annexer Center.
Lisa Moon, Clearbrook.
Susan Kaufman, Clearbrook.
Alice Gordon, Clearbrook.
It's a holiday.
They're not getting paid, so they came down.
Dave Baker, Open Door.
Steve Mitchell, Kankakee County Training Center for Disabled.
Diana Graham, Kankakee County Training Center.
West Dixon Training Center.
Kristen Huffman, Knoxville Pack Learning Center.
And you are?
Oh. So no, avoid community alternatives.
All right, let's start with Carlin. Go the back row.
Carl Clearbrook. One up on to CAU.
John Lipscomb, Keystone Alliance.
Greg Shaver from Centralia.
Dale Morrissey, Developmental Services Center, Champaign.
Connie Walters, DSC.
Tom Frederick, Gum City.
All right. Very good. All right, Roxy, why don't you kick us off here? And
So I'm going to just take 10 minutes to plow through some of the stuff on the agenda, and then Lori and George can fire away. I know that Lori has a PowerPoint, so we'll get out of the way so you guys can see everything. But I wanted to labor market. Yeah. So up here, there's a handout. Hopefully mostly everyone was able to grab it. The waiver market handout. So first of all, I'd like to thank Deborah Braun for bringing this to my attention. She got, and maybe some of you have gotten some emails from them, just like a marketing email. This handout kind of gives a brief description of what they are, but right before Christmas, Deborah kind of brought this to my attention that it's a simple comparison. It's like a Zillow. Does everybody know what Zillow is for apartments and houses and condos, and but for the DD world? So technically the website is live, and anyone can go on there, create a profile, put up a listing, so to speak, that is at no cost to you. And it's open to the public, anybody can look at it. But really there's no utility unless in my opinion, unless like a whole county is on it or a whole state is on it. So it was an interesting platform tool for me to kind of look at and wonder about as I go to Life Choices meetings and all of this is kind of percolating. And, you know, one of the things that always our conversations get distilled down to is that everybody wishes that this pie in the sky kind of solution for service coordination is for everyone to be able to use a tool that's user friendly for families, easy to get into, easy to search, very customized to what we do in the state and what you do in the state. And this kind of came up as at a time where I was sort of hearing those conversations. And so if only for just an informational thing, I've been talking to the founder, and he has a DD background as well as a tech background. They currently live in Alaska, but they're piloting this in Colorado, in Boulder County, and hopefully statewide in Colorado. So he agreed to do a webinar for us. And I'm hoping to get not just IARF members, but other people in the state. I've brought it up with JMA at the quality committee meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. If you guys are familiar with the group iPad, they're a parents advocacy group. They're also interested in like wanting to learn more about this. So February 10th, there's going to be a webinar to kind of introduce you guys and just explain what this whole thing is about and what it's a pretty simple tool. You can search by what kind of residence you want. You can search by what the needs are of the individual that you're searching for needs, like different medical needs or behavioral needs or things like that. And in the sense that every state is different or every county is different, the founder has expressed that depending on what is necessary, it can be built into the site. Of course, probably there's a cost involved in that way, but because of the conversations I've had with different meetings I've been to for Life Choices and HCBS and things like that, everyone is always very concerned about the cost and who could build something like this, and would it be cumbersome and would it be not user friendly? And you know, then the conversations fall flat because no one has a solution in that regard. So this is sort of like a tool that I think maybe is worth exploring and looking at, given that there's been interest from all different kinds of groups, including the state. So,
So Roxy, I'm going to talk a little bit about our housing locator in the state of Illinois, but we already have one.
Okay. Okay.
It might make sense to look at how the division, DHS pays for part of it.
Sure.
HFS aging,
Yep.
Illinois Housing Development Authority, and how our waiting lists are managed, and
Yep.
it already has a lot of functionality, so we could really probably build this into there rather than
Yep.
create something new out of the blue. So,
Well,
so
and
you know.
sure. Okay. That would be great. And since this isn't really building it up from, you know, it already kind of is a template, and, you know, you guys can take a look at it prior to the webinar and just kind of take a look and see at what it is. And that's what this flyer is about. So wanted to just explain that to you guys and encourage you to listen in on what Waiver Market's all about. So that's number one. Number two, has anyone heard of a Chicago Appleseed Fund for Justice? I guess another better question is, have any of your agencies worked with the court systems in your counties to provide services to like any of the attorneys, as far as identifying people that may end up in the court system that have developmental delays or intellectual disabilities, and like the attorneys don't know, and they need to identify them so that so they don't kind of get dragged through the court system, but just receive the proper services that they may need. Has anyone ever needed to do that, or had to do that, or been asked to do that? Yeah. You have? Yeah. Okay. So this is in Cook County then, but they're looking for that kind of expertise. They'd like to partner with people around Cook County that, okay, we will.
Get the name again?
So it's out of, well, the name of their project is, or nonprofit is called Chicago Appleseed Fund for Justice.
Is it at the
Shriver?
No, it's not out of Shriver. It's
One of the universities, law schools?
It's, let me find it exactly. I think that it's, they're working directly with Cook County courts. So I think it's its own arm. It's not,
Do you have a contact person?
I do. And Josh and I have been talking to her, and she's just kind of looking for someone to, a group or an agency that can kind of provide that expertise to the court. The judges are aware of this, and, you know, the attorneys are, so they're looking for someone to help, you know, if someone lands in their hands and they would like just to not drag people through the court system if they don't need to be, and they could just receive.
Chicago Appleseed Foundation?
Yep, Chicago Appleseed Fund for Justice. So I can put, I just wanted to, even though they're based in Cook County, I wondered if other providers had sort of that kind of experience with their county court system or whatever. Okay, so I'll put them in contact with you guys. Great. Well, Cyrus is deep in conversation. But do you want to do this now, or do you want to do this later? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you if you want to talk about this later.
Are we on to the subcommittee?
Yep. Sorry.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to announce that the board of directors has okayed the going forward with an employment subcommittee that will meet in conjunction with the IDD committee during our membership meetings, and we will use that committee as a mechanism to discuss the issues, the ones that are most current and relevant to our area at the time, and advance those recommendations to the state government. I'm sure all of you are more than aware of the many employment issues that our system is facing right now, and some significant changes that are coming down the road. Further implementation of Employment First, further implementation of WIOA, the ongoing headache that is the Department or Division of Rehabilitation Services. I think it would be truly beneficial for us to have constant formal attention to these issues and discuss as a whole, as an association through the committee level, to bring a heightened level of attention to those issues and advancing the recommendations. The next membership meeting in February, I would like to really begin the process of moving this committee forward by discussing and advancing recommendations relevant to the Division of Rehabilitation Services. I'm sure all of you are having issues with referrals right now. Referrals have been, what do you say, worse than they've ever been before. It's not like they were great in the last few years, but they are exponentially worse this year. And moving into the next fiscal year, there's no indication that they're going to get better. We've had some discussions with the assistant bureau chiefs, trying to get them involved on the local level to put some pressure on their local administrators to move some referrals. That hasn't worked. We meet quarterly with Director Chris Smith, and we've had discussions. We had in December, spoke specifically about the issue of referrals, and she is anticipating recommendations from us. We've also had meeting or discussions with the governor's office and the division or the Department of Human Services about some issues relevant to DRS, and they would also like to be brought into the loop on some recommendations that the association can advance. So I'm very excited for this subcommittee. I think it's going to be great. And I know people have been telling me that DRS has been a headache for 30 years, and that's, while it's frustrating, guys only been doing this for 5, I really do see some opportunity for change. We talked about this morning, opportunity for change. We have a new administration, well, newer administration. Well, she's been there for 20 years.
And so has Doug. Sorry. I've all been there for a long time.
You're right. But I think there is opportunity for change. And I think it's important for us to stay positive and proactive. That's the biggest key. Be proactive. So I'm excited. I hope you are as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions about the subcommittee, the process, anything. Or just employment questions in general.
So how do you want people to identify TV that might be a part of this?
Everybody's part of the subcommittee. This is going to meet in conjunction with this committee. And it's not, I'm sorry, thank you, that's a good question. Because this is going to be anything employment related, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be specific to IDDD issues. It will meet in conjunction with this committee because it is the bigger committee, but again, but it doesn't necessarily have to be just for our issues. Anything related to the realm of employment can be brought forward to this committee, and everyone is a part of it.
You know, there's a couple people that we've been working with on a customized employment type thing. We're not having so many problems getting those letters from DRS stating that individuals were not employable through their programs, and we're starting to see a roadblock with that, which we did not. We were fairly able to get those letters fairly quickly. These are people who require super, customized employment.
I've heard that from a few people. That is no longer allowed under WIOA. That's one aspect of WIOA that I've been told that they are no longer allowed to do that. However, it's my understanding that Doug Morton at DRS, Rita Hoskins at DDD, and Sue Fonfa, HFS, are meeting. I think they met last week, and they are discussing a process of how can those three agencies work together to more seamlessly transition someone to the more appropriate set of services. And right now, as we stand right now, from what I've been told by Lou Hamer, there are two mechanisms to move someone through the VR process and get them onto the DDD waiver. And that is one for them to either exhaust 2 trial work experiences under VR, or have them go in and open a VR case, and the consumer or their family needs to tell the VR administrator who they're working with that they deny VR services.
So what if VR doesn't open the case?
The problem is
What?
They won't open the case.
at all.
That
I don't mean to be negative.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
those are the-
Cyrus, I'm so happy that you're doing this.
So can I
it's
just clarify? So they cannot send a denial letter then, is
They
what
won't.
they're
They're
saying?
not doing
So
it
they
right now.
cannot send a termination or a denial letter anymore.
No, the case has to be
But-
open, services denied, and then closed.
But if the
But they
family,
can refuse to open it completely
Yeah.
at first. And this is a process of change. Lou also said that they have in the northern region, out of 11 supervisors, 8 are new. So I know that there's been a lot of change in the counselors and the administration. So maybe that's a good thing and an opportunity. I'm not
I've
sure
also
how
been told that they've
they-
hired 26 new counselors.
They have.
And I know that's going to
So
help,
that's-
because I'm not, it's not my job to make excuses for the division, but you have to be cognizant of their staffing issues. They are serious, and they are there, and it does have an impact on their ability to process things like deferrals.
well, and I
But
understand.
it's not a good enough excuse for me.
But in the meantime, until we can get there, our people who need these services, is there any way that we can work with the department to fund those people under the developmental training program with one-on-one supports until we can get this problem settled with doors, because this is not an issue for.
That would be for IADD and waiting for that.
Right. But I mean,
Right.
it's just something in negotiations that you have to do with the department. We're holding these people.
Yeah.
And that's one component of the population. There's a much bigger component of the population that qualify for supported employment that the DRS counselors are not open either, because they're not checking out that box. So if you have to triage, right, like customized employment, supported employment, and then milestone, the whole group of wherever anybody falls is very dependent on that counselor's, subjective judgment from an hour of talking to them. When we bring as a provider a group of individuals to say these people can work, and we're going to make sure that they work. So I say that to say I think it's great that you're doing the subcommittee, and I think you need all of our help to kind of give you the information that you need.
Yeah,
So we're
and you bring up a good point. Is these referrals for supported employment have been dwindling over the years, and then with WIOA extension of the time frame that supported employment is allowed, there most definitely was a congressional mandate for states to put more emphasis on using supported employment. So we've been told time after time over the last 18 months that the division will be increasing supported employment referrals. Haven't seen evidence of it yet.
Well, and
Haven't
not
seen-
many providers are funded to provide under doors to provide support clinical services. That's a very closed group of providers.
Mhm.
So that.
But even
And
the ones
that's-
that are not getting the numbers because they won't check out that box. So it's, again.
And let's be honest, a lot of what, for us to be effective in working with that division, there's going to be an element of culture change that needs to take place, and how that happens remains to be seen. But I just want to make a note to everybody that we are placing emphasis on really trying to make some changes to that division. It's like I said, like we've all talked about, it's been difficult for far too long, and push is past shove. And I'm excited to see what we can do, and I hope all of you are as well. Please don't be too frustrated. Let's be proactive and engaged, and let's see what we can do. And I hope there's some immediate things that we can see done, as well as some long term.
And congratulations to all of you for now being on the employment subcommittee.
Not just the people that talked, right?
Really quickly, just one more thing before Lori and George fire away. Rita sent out yesterday, I believe, the on-site validation tool. Some of you might have seen it. Some of you might not have. I was out sick yesterday, but I will be sure to send this today to everybody. It's kind of like something that should have been already part of the changes in the HCBS plan that we submitted comments on the 2nd. But because of all the changes and who's new now in charge of HCBS, the new draft was really kind of not that different. So we asked that as soon as they change some of these more substantive issues, that they not wait till March when they submit it to CMS, but give it to us for us to really, those are the things we were waiting for to comment on before, and now they're sending it. So I'll send that out. They would like a comment by the 2nd, so I'll be sure to send that out today. Again, it's the on-site validation tool that they would use for that site sample. That we also asked for them to tell us how they're going to choose the site sample, or how that's going to work. So
it's my understanding, and I don't know what the definition is, but any site that scored at a 4 or 3 will have a required site review, and then all other sites will be a random sample.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will send that out as soon as possible. Other than that, does anyone have any questions about anything? The Waiver Market webinar or Chicago Appleseed? If you have any questions, you can just come up to me. I'll be in the back so we can get out of the way because they have a PowerPoint.
That bright light is going to shine in my eyes at any minute now.
You don't want to do that. Like being in a gulag or.
Yeah, right.
Good morning. I took out my phone to look at the time because if not, I'm going to keep looking at that clock that never moves, and you're going to listen to me for the rest of the day. So please excuse me if I look at that. Because me turn on the PowerPoint. I don't know what
It's ready for you. It's lifted up. It has to warm up this first.
Oh, it just has to warm up. There it comes. So fancy. I have a tendency to talk fast, and I apologize if I do. Please slow me down. I know a lot of people in the room, and I know a lot of people in the room know some of this stuff. So, if I go too fast through it, let me know. We've got some practitioners in the room, so it's great to be able to start. But I am Lori Baker. I have just been given the opportunity to become not only the housing coordinator, but the employment first coordinator. So we are working on those very issues through the ODEP grants that we have that are employment first state mentorship leadership program. So we're just getting started on phase 2. We've been awarded a second grant. So I'm working on a lot of those policy issues and working in conjunction with DRS, DDD, DMH, and a variety of HFS to work on those kind of things. So you may even get to talk to me more than this if you're interested in employment as well as housing. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of overview of what it is that I do. I've been around for a couple of years now in state government. Before that, I was the executive director of the Supportive Housing Providers Association. And before that, I did direct programming in central Illinois, where we did homeless services, transitional housing, and developed permanent supportive housing in central Illinois. So I've been with the state, like I said, for a couple of years now. I used to be in the Governor's Office of Health Innovation and Transformation that no longer exists. These are some of the things that I work on. And so I want to talk to you today about some of the housing resources that we have available for persons with disabilities and how you might think about consumers that you work with and how people might want to be involved. I think a lot of you know that there are a variety of affordable housing options kind of available in the community. They are oftentimes very limited, but we don't probably do a great job of really capturing these types of resources for the consumers that we work with that have intellectual and developmental disabilities because of the problems that we have with the way that our service system is set up. The Illinois Housing Development Authority is the housing finance agency in the state of Illinois. Some of you guys have probably worked with them. I know Susan has a supportive housing project that is funded by them. Cornerstone has stuff. There's a lot of people that have worked with them, but their mission is to really, work on development of multifamily rental developments, as well as affordable home ownership for the members of the state of the individuals who live in the state of Illinois. And they have some housing priorities that are very, core to the kind of work that we're talking about doing. They work with very low and extremely low income households, seniors, persons with disabilities, people experiencing or at risk of homelessness, and looking at siting housing near work and preservation of affordable housing. So these are all important issues to us. They administer a lot of state resources, and they are a bonding agency. So who is a bonding agency outside the state of Illinois. So they're not affiliated. They actually have a AAA rating at IDA, as opposed to the state of Illinois, which is not AAA. And so they also have federal money that comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, like the home funds. The largest creator of affordable housing across the nation are the federal low-income housing tax credits. We have state tax credits. We have the Rental Housing Support Program, which is a legislatively mandated program that provides rental subsidies, and it has a dedicated funding stream. And they have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is some general revenue funded money. So, I don't know, it's about 2006, IDA decided that they wanted to add to the integrated supportive housing units that were being developed around the state. And so they came up with what they called the statewide referral network, which was the idea of awarding extra points within low-income housing tax credit applications to people that would set aside 10 to 20% of the units within that property for supportive housing populations. They have been developing those. Those went into the qualified allocation plan in 2007, and they will continue. They have continued every year to create more units. We got about 1,400 units or so now. They also are the holders of the contract for our online housing locator, which is at www.ilhousingsearch.org. Which most of our they've got an IGA with 4 partner agencies, DHS, Aging, HFS, and IDA, that all pay for our online housing locator and have for some time now. It's a way that any person can list rentals that they have for free. Any person can go and look at those, and then we have some caseworker login internal functions that folks can use that are signed up and that are working with populations that might be eligible for some of the resources that we're working on. Our statewide referral network units are considered supportive housing. People have to be at 30% of area median income or below to be eligible and meet some other criteria. And when a provider is placing a person on our statewide referral network waiting list, they are promising or pledging that they're going to continue to support that consumer in accessing the housing, completing the move, and in their living in that additional unit, because we didn't have any money back in the state in 2007 to add to people's contracts to provide the service. So we just asked people to take folks into the service packages that they already have. So people that are eligible for statewide referral network units are households that the head of household has a disability, that's any disability. They are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness, and they make 30% of area median income or below for their community. We don't have, like I said, it's not huge. It's not hundreds of thousands of units. It's about 1,400 units statewide, but it is part of the resource that we bring to the table and that we manage through our online housing locator and waiting list. We do give priority within the statewide referral network to our class members, Williams, Lucas, Colbert, Money Follows the Person participants, and people that are seeking to move out of state operated developmental centers. So they rise to the top of the list when we match our waiting list to the available apartments that are out there. We have apartments available every month. There's turnover. They truly are located everywhere around the state. And I have units that I still don't have any referrals for in a variety of locations. And if you want to know what they are, you can tell me later that you want to be on our Heads Up on Housing email. And I send out an email, try to once a month, that indicates units that we don't have any referrals for on our online waiting list. But it doesn't mention all of the units that we're filling off of our waiting list. So you have to remember that there's other units that aren't being listed on there also. So it's important to get people onto the waiting list if they're interested in a statewide referral network unit. The second resource that we have within the state of Illinois is called the Section 811 Project-Based Rental Assistance Program. We were awarded with IDA as the chief applicant, and then Aging, HFS, and DHS all as partner supporters, 2 different HUD Section 811 grants. It's a way to do, I know Ben has done Section 811 development. Has anybody ever done Section 811 back in the day when it was brick and mortar? You know, you did like 6-person group home or 8-person group home, or supportive housing, single site, small supportive housing projects. Congress updated the program some years ago now and made it into a project-based rental assistance program so that they could get more bang for their buck. So instead of spending $4.5 million on one project that would house 18 people, they could spend $4.5 million and house thousands of people, right? So it became a rental subsidy program. It is only for persons that are very low income, and people have to be between 18 and not yet turned 62 to be eligible for the program. And that's because there's a lot of resources for people that are aging out there. And so this is designed to be for people with a disability where there aren't as many resources for them. In Illinois, when we wrote the 2 grants that we wrote, we ended up getting altogether about $18 million worth of rental subsidies, which is going to garner us about 900 units. It's project-based rental assistance, which means it goes on top of a property and stays with the property. It doesn't move with the consumer. So if you know anything about like housing choice vouchers or other individual rental subsidies, where you can kind of take that voucher wherever a landlord will accept it. With this, the rental subsidy is allocated to one of our statewide referral network units. We are doing all kinds of work with data around the eligible populations about where to place those units so that they're actually in locations where people who are eligible want to live. And they will be able to access those units through our online waiting list, and they will get to use that subsidy as long as they live in that unit. But if they choose to move out of that unit, they don't have a rental subsidy to take with them, if that makes any sense. So the only eligible people, and the way that we wrote it was that the only eligible folks that are eligible for these 900 project-based rental subsidy units are people that are Williams, Liggess, and Colbert class members, MFP participants, and people seeking to move out of state operated developmental centers. So basically Olmsted-related populations. Those, Liggess, as you know, has 2 classes, so it would, or 2 subclasses, and so it is eligible for ICF. DD moves, so a person could move into one of these units, but it's also the only class that has people that aren't currently institutionalized that are eligible. So people that have been selected from the PUNS list for service would be eligible for one of these units also. The reason they have to be selected for service is that it's supportive housing. If they don't have the support that they need through long-term services and supports, they're not going to be able to be successful in the housing in the first place, right? That is one of the other requirements, that you are eligible for long-term services and supports, or Medicaid state plan supports, or Medicaid waiver supports, whatever the supports that are appropriate for you and your population, you have to be eligible for also, so that this truly is a supportive housing project. We do use our caseworker portal within IL Housing Search to run a function. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, but when I started working about 2 years ago, it became really quickly very clear that we were going to have a problem in having persons that were Liggess class members be able to access these rental subsidies because we didn't have a service package that was flexible enough to be able to support folks in individual housing on their own. So as we worked with consumers and providers and the division, we came up with the supportive housing options pilot project, which I hope I have enough of these. I printed like 40, but want to take time to just discuss what this is. Thank you. So, I'm sorry. So at the very basis, supportive housing at its very most basic is affordable housing plus the services and supports you need to be able to live the life that you desire integrated in your community, right? Doesn't have to be overly complicated beyond that. Affordable housing plus services, right? That's what it is. It's got to be affordable for the person. So with these rental subsidies, people are able to pay 30% of their adjusted gross income towards the rent, and the rental subsidy pays the difference up to fair market rent or whatever the rent of the unit is. The kind of services that are provided, depend upon the type of population that is accessing supportive housing, but case management, care coordination, budgeting, transportation, employment, education, healthcare, mental health, social activities, behavioral supports, and on and on and on. You name it, whatever it is that person needs, wrapped around them where they're at. It's person-centered, flexible, available, right? So as we know, we kind of have really basically two service packages within the state of Illinois, and I overly simplify this when I talk about it because I know there's a bunch of variations in the middle, but our issue is between 168 hours a week and 15 hours a week, right? That's the issue in between. You all know this, everybody knows this. So we started to talk with division providers and everybody and came up with the idea of the supportive housing options pilot project. So I've just said what the issue is. We've got these rental subsidies that people are eligible for. I personally don't want to be the person to tell the Department of Justice why nobody with intellectual and developmental disabilities got access to these rental subsidies. I don't think anybody else does either. So we need to make sure that we are figuring out how to provide a flexible service, learn how it works, and then decide what it is that needs to happen in the future in order to expand those opportunities for other folks. Because just because we have this rental subsidy resource doesn't mean there aren't other rental subsidy resources and other affordable housing options that we're leaving on the table out there that people aren't getting access to because we don't necessarily have the right type of services readily available in order for people to access those services, right? So we proposed that we would create this pilot program. People who are eligible are the folks that I just mentioned. Providers, we've had a variety of providers that have said that they're interested in doing this. The project that we have furthest along is in Metro East, so you can talk to Jane about all the fun that they've had at DDSME trying to figure out how to make this stuff work for folks. We've had a lot of cooperation with the Division of Developmental Disabilities and that, and trying to figure out how to make this work. And so what we came up with after, that was about a year ago, I think, that we had DD hosted a meeting of providers that Joe Turner hosted and myself, and we talked about what basic service package could we start with, what made the most sense. There was factions that wanted home and community-based services as a base. There was factions that wanted, intermittent SILA as a base. When we went back, we were going to try both, but home and community-based services has a cap, right? HBS has a cap of funding, and we decided that would artificially, make difficult us to be really flexible with this and trying to be person-centered. So we decided that we needed to go with the intermittent SILA package, use the baseline at 15 hours and add additional hours of service based on individual need. We are continuing to work with the division over how these packets have to be presented, what it is that rates needs to do to be able to back out things like a person's income because they get to retain their own income, how we make sure that folks are getting the amount of service and supports that they need, and that we can continue to learn from this as we begin to move forward, because the idea is to actually have it be a true pilot where we learn from what findings are, what kind of supports are needed, how we might need to change either the current DD waiver to add service definitions or change service definitions, or is there something else that we need to do in order to try to make this one of the options that people are presented with when they do go to their ISC agency and are trying to decide what it is that they want to actually work towards for their loved one or for themselves. So we continue to work on this option. We've had a couple of kind of outliers at the moment. We had a LIGIS class member that was in an emergency situation access one of our statewide referral network units in August and moved into a condo in Arlington Heights. And Director Finn and I are actually going to visit him at his home this Friday so that he can talk about how important that is for him and how he has enjoyed. And this has been a really great move for him. He was able to stay on home-based services, which he already had, and after all the team met and his family and mother and himself, and they decided that that was going to be enough support for him, and it seems to have been so far. We have a LIGIS class member who is getting ready to move into a Section 811 unit on Milwaukee Avenue in Chicago, who has been approved for the housing, and CAU has been CSO, I think it's CAU, has been working with, has been working with the division to nail down the particulars of the service package, and there was some misreporting of income. They reported too much income to the housing provider, and so now we've had to get some documentation to confirm that her income is actually below 30% of area median income, so that she's still eligible. But she's getting ready to move in. It should be any time now. And then, like I said, the first project that we started working with is a building in Edwardsville, which is a beautiful rehab building and brand new construction that the families that I was meeting with actually mentioned. I mean, they were basically the impetus for us starting this whole journey, because I went to meet with them pretty early on in my career in state government, and they were like, if we could just get this, at this beautiful building over here, this would be perfect, because it's right by transportation, it's right by the walking trail, and it's centrally located, and there's shopping, and there's everything here, and this would be a fabulous place for our folks. And just happened to know that it was IDA development and that they had low-income housing tax credits, and so that kind of percolated and started the whole thing going. So we've got 5 LIGIS class members that are getting ready to move into that property. It opens up on February 8th. And George has told me earlier that they are in process of, they've got one packet totally approved and several more that they are working through the final number of additional hours that are going to be added to it so that they'll be ready to move in. So in a nutshell, that is the Supportive Housing Options Pilot Project in 15 minutes or less. How is that? That's pretty good. And I can answer any questions. George can answer questions about what the rate group is doing in terms of working through how to do this. And
maybe
before you want to
fund it.
What?
Like base 15 and then everything that's funded after that.
Let George tell you. You want to start at the.
Why don't I give a little brief synopsis here? In conjunction with what Lori's bringing up, what we've done is we have redefined the family and relative portion of the SILA rate definition, and I have drafted an information bulletin which is currently going through an upper management review right now. Hopefully within about 2 weeks, you'll see it posted as a draft information bulletin. But basically what it is that we are clarifying the definition. And part of this is we kind of have to be careful in what we are defining here so that we don't run into any problems with the waiver, with the the current rules and regulations on stuff. But basically what we're planning to do is to clarify family, relative, or own home. We're going to add own home to that category. And so for someone that is in their own apartment where they control the lease, That individual or their guardian as applicable. We are going to classify that as the same as with a family CILA, to where we will not include room and board in the CILA rate components, but that will also exclude the individual from any offsets. So they will retain all of their own money and be able to purchase whatever goods and services they need from all of their available resources and benefits and things. So we've kind of unhitched the housing component, and basically we would be buying, purchasing services and supports for the individual as opposed to part of their housing, since they can access this and probably get a bigger bang for their buck, going through this. Let me just address briefly on the 15 hours a week. We've got an information bulletin out there. The 15 hours a week for people with intermittent or family supports is not hard and fast. It's typically what we have been awarding on stuff. If the individual needs more hours, then we are looking to fund those hours with an explanation of why they need the additional hour. And I know up until this point, what we have been doing is any additional support hours over the 15 a week have been put in as billable. Greg and I have been in discussions, and what he's wanting to do is to move those additional supports back into the rate on things, and so that's something that we're in the process of doing at this point. So that would not be something, and in addition to just the intermittent services, we're also looking at that for a lot of other what we have as billables right now, to basically come up with the services and supports, and as opposed to putting them in as billables, we would roll them in as part of the rate on things. So that's what we've been working on hot and heavy here for recent times. So, and that's, at that point, I'm just gonna say we're available for questions.
So it's as clear as mud. No questions?
Any questions?
Yes, Carl?
If I heard you right, if someone moves, the money doesn't go with them?
The rental subsidy does not go with them.
Why? I mean, Section 8 money goes with them.
It's the way that the program was designed. It's not anything that we can do or change. It's it's in the legislation that it's a project-based rental assistance, and there is project-based housing choice vouchers, Section 8, that are on properties all over the nation too. So they, I think they wanted to not mirror. What they did was they made it be, to get more bang for their buck for the amount of money that they had. They required on a federal level that the rental subsidies be placed on property that were already affordable housing. So that means their units rents are lower, because not to overcomplicate, but like low-income housing tax credits, you have 30% area median income rents, which are flat rent. You got 50%, you got 60%. So if I am paying 30% rent, then the difference that the rental subsidy has to pay between what the consumer pays and what that rent is much smaller. And so they're trying to get more units out of the same amount of money. And so that's why it has to stay, why they've made it project-based rents. So it's a federal way that they set up the program. Yes.
So can the 811 go on top of another affordable housing project? It would be a piece inside of a larger piece? Yeah. Yeah,
that's what it is, basically. Although at this point, we can't promise it to any properties that are applying to IDA at this point for funding. What we've done is there's, and you can go on IDA's website and look, they have communities of preference that we have taken Williams, Liggis, Colbert, and MFP data and looked at where people have moved to and where people who haven't moved yet but have indicated where they want to move to, what those communities are. And then the Section 811 Interagency Panel, which is made up of, the Division of Developmental Disabilities, Mental Health, DRS, Aging, HFS, We all agreed upon what those top 20 communities of preference are. So as we have units that are coming online that have already been funded by IDA and made affordable, then we look and see if they're in communities of preference, and if they are, we layer the rental subsidies on top of them. We have an online waiting list, which would take too much time to talk about, but if you want me to come and do presentations to your ISC staff or to your transitional staff that's working with people on transitions about how to get people onto the waiting list for these units, I'm always available to do that. I'm working on trying to do those pieces as we can. We've got thousands of people that are able to put folks onto our waiting list, both for statewide referral network and for our Section 811 resources, and we are making active matches every day to those properties and referring people to that. So that's the way we capture units and the way that people access them. And
how many people have benefited from this program, the 811 project?
So it's really just getting ramped up. So we got awarded funding, seems like forever ago, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the first round. HUD, amazingly, if anybody's ever worked with HUD, took a really long time to get the first group of requirements out and documents and things that people had to sign. So that took over a year. We've been trying to get stuff moving as we go along. So basically, we're just now having live units. But the first person moved into an 811 unit in December, and that was a Williams class member in Evanston. And then we've got folks, slated to move in now into several properties. And I have some properties open in Bloomington Normal right now that are scatter site, and I still have units on Milwaukee Avenue, which, by the way, it's in the Avondale neighborhood, if you know anything about the neighborhoods in Chicago. And it's a fabulous building that is like brand new, totally accessible. I have a hearing impairment accessible unit, a vision impairment accessible unit, and all of the units have roll-in showers and complete turning radiuses and really big, wide, beautiful. All the utilities are included, and washer dryer is free in the main room. So, and I need people that are Section 8 eligible to refer to there. I only have one person getting ready to go in, and I have 3 other Section 811 units. It's a beautiful. They have I just went and visited it about a month and a half. They have raised gardens in the back, so people that use a chair can garden. I mean, it's really been well thought out, and so we're just starting to hit so this means, and I ever since I've been kind of concentrating on DD starting a couple of years ago, I've been trying to tell people, our folks, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and people that are involved with MFP are going to be the people that get these units, because we're getting to the end of Williams, quote unquote. We're kind of in the middle with Colbert. So there's going to be lots of opportunity for folks. Talking about 900 units, then I've got maybe 5 that are in the mix at the moment, that are really got people moving into them. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the folks that you guys work with, if you get them on the list. Yes, Ben?
People that are currently in the system, can they apply for this if they see a unit that comes up and they're interested?
So like people that are currently living in Acilla or
currently have intermittent solar, can they apply for this?
They aren't eligible for Section 811, but they would be eligible for statewide referral network units. And then we'd have to talk to DDD about service package.
So George, the service package that you described, are you looking at maybe doing that with some other people, or making it available to other people with intermittent SILA? Because that model, we have a lot of people who live in their own apartments. It just doesn't work.
When we get the information bulletin posted as far as the clarification of the own home, yes, that would be available to anybody that is currently out there in intermittent services in their own apartment, and we can make those switches. So that's the intention, is that we would make those switches, based on the desires of the individual, and in conjunction with the agency and the ISA that you know, they need to work together and find out, you know, is this going to be better off for this individual, or, you know, given the circumstances. So.
And Kim, you know, there's lots of need to look at, you know, we have match resources from public housing authorities that were matched to our Section 811 that we have. I have in my kind of strategic plan looking out to work with more public housing authorities to get them to commit to us some resources. So there's a possibility there. Secretary would really like for us to be able to figure out how we can support parents or guardians that would like to purchase or have the ability to go together, because we hear that all the time when you talk to people. You know, all these things are kind of percolating in on the radar, and you know, as we solidify, you know, how services will work, and you know, what is needed to be able to you know, access things, or what will happen if people potentially would want to change even from a, you know, I'm sure that there are people that reside in 24-hour solar right now that don't necessarily need 24-hour support. So, you know, is there a way that we can allow them this option too? I mean, I can't speak for the division, but I know that, you know, it's you know, it all depends upon how they figure out. I say we. It's not me figuring it out. How the division figures out, you know, how services work, and what makes sense, and what can be cost neutral as we look at, you know, a budget that doesn't exist, and those kinds of things. So. Any other questions?
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I did send this slide presentation to Roxy so that she can send it out to you, and the one pager on the supportive housing options pilot project so that she can send it out to you all.
They lost control. Yeah.
We let them keep it, so now we lost control. All of the, so we have some folks that,
We've got agencies that say, we let the individuals keep their money and really don't do anything. And this will really help rectify some of those situations that are already out there. So, yeah. Right.
I don't know that they're